The Period Place Podcast.
Shark Week. Riding the cotton pony. Yeah. I have salsa in my taco. Yes.
Rag Week. Oh,
Rag Week.
Oh, that's bloody hell.
Bloody hell. Bloody hell, Harry.
The Period Place Podcast.
Thanks to our mates at Ubay Kotex.
Woohoo! Okay, we're here. We're finally
live.
here. There's two of us here. Those are the voices that you're recognising
This is
right
us.
now. So my name is Tegan Yorith.
My name is Danny Revel.
Okay, and so before we get into what this podcast is going to be all about, let's just give a quick rundown on who we are. So my name is Tegan Yorith. I am a breakfast host on a beautiful radio station called My FM, number one music station in Auckland, just saying. So basically, I don't know, a bit of background on me. I've been in radio for a couple of years. I absolutely adore it. I love broadcasting. It's the most fun thing I could ever do.
Even when you're on your period?
Even when I'm on my period, funnily enough. And it is so empowering being a woman of Māori and European descent, being able to be on this massive platform, being able to talk about all sorts of things. And I think for me, I just want to be one of those people that's a little bit hashtag woke and are talking about stuff that we're not meant to be talking about, you know, stuff that's a little bit taboo or tapu, if we want to call it that. So it's really important for me to be in a space where we're going to talk about the real shit, all right?
The real bloody shit.
Yeah,
the
the real-
periods. The real red stuff.
Yep, that's the one. All right, Danny, take it away.
All right, so trying to talk about myself in a short and condensed way when I'm one of the world's most over talky talkers.
It's okay.
I'll do my
That's
best,
why we're on a
babes.
podcast.
I know, edit it down. I am Aussie, you can probably tell. I've been living here for about 8 years. Started the Period Place with one of my best mates, Sarah, 3 years ago, to fight the shame around period stigma, to provide education to people about periods, and to make sure that everybody in New Zealand has the same access to period products. We started off with this cute little idea to have a period pop-up shop in Ponsonby, sell some merch that was like feminist written across the front,
Yeah.
and donate some period products to poverty.
Dope.
And then we were like, shit, that's expensive, yo. You got to front up the costs for a pop-up shop. We didn't have that. Both of us were at home with, I had a 1-month-old, she had like a 4-month-old, and we had this idea. So we ended up scrapping that, doing some cool art activations, bringing people on board, realising that maybe what our idea of periods wasn't everybody's idea of periods.
And it's funny because it's not until I've grown to this age right now that I've finally not been so ashamed of having a period and talking about a period. And even on my space on national radio, it's not a space I would always feel comfortable being in a very male orientated space, which is fine. I have 2 male co-hosts and it's totally okay, but not everyone's as comfortable to talk about periods as we are. But that's why we're here. We're going to smash through that. We're
Smash
getting
through
through.
that.
We want to bring the best education we can about periods, all the taboos around it, all the myths about it.
Yeah, we're smashing through
We
'em.
we want you to listen to this podcast and by the end of it be like, yeah, I bleed.
Yeah.
And it's dope. And it's all good.
Hashtag
and it's empowering.
we all bleed.
Yeah, we all bleed. And it's about people with periods. You are the priority here. And we just want to do our best to just talk about everything around it. We've got a bunch of guests we're going to be
Bunch of
interviewing
guests.
over this whole span. Every week there'll be someone new. This first episode, we're talking to Dr. Sash.
Dr. Sash.
Periods and the basics. So all the stuff you don't know about it, well, we're gonna
She's
learn
got it
about it.
covered.
Yeah, we're gonna learn about it. We've also got a sexologist,
A sexologist.
Morgan Penn. Who else have we got?
Oh, we've got H. McCardle, who has come in to talk about periods and gender and what it's like to be a non-binary person experiencing periods.
Yeah, and another topic we're going to talk about throughout the podcast is periods and te ao Māori and just different cultural experiences with periods, because it's not just a Caucasian experience, for lack of a better word. I hate that word. I don't want to label us like that.
worldview it's
Yeah.
the dominant worldview
Yeah.
for where we are in the world at the moment. It's a worldview. It's not the worldview. It's a worldview, and it's really important that we look through all the different lenses, through te ao Māori, through feminism.
And it's not just about having a period and all that kind of icky, weird stuff that we have to experience.
All the crap that comes with it.
It's about making it super, super normal. So even things like your sex life, having a period it's not something that's going to deter you from your sex life.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect it at all. This is all the stuff we're going to cover. But you know what? What I want to sort of really, really reiterate is that everybody's experience with a period is different. However, whatever your experience is, it is normal.
It's valid.
It's okay.
It's yours.
And then hopefully from listening to whatever favourite episode or maybe all the episodes of this podcast, you'll feel like, oh no, I've got a nice little safe space. All us people together that share a period, we're all in this together and we all relate.
And everybody who doesn't get a period is involved in this as well. We
Yeah.
need allies who are
Stay
talking-
woke.
Stay woke.
Yeah, start educating yourself because we don't humiliate, we educate. That is the best
Yes.
way to get people the
Love
message.
that.
Yeah, okay, I learned that one. I learned
like
that
that
one.
one.
That's
Yep.
not one I can just trademark myself.
Okay.
I actually heard that online. I think it was from a little blog called Shit You Should Care About. And we're actually talking to someone
Yes,
from Shit You
Luce.
Should Care About, Lucy. And I'm so excited to talk to her on the podcast as well.
What a journey those girls have been on.
But today, on this episode, we are talking to Dr. Sash. She is the co-founder of Well Revolution, which is a mobile app where you can basically find a doctor 24/7. You can just DM them. How
It's
easy.
Amazing. It's instant. It is medicine for you right now, not
Yeah.
next week when the doctor has an appointment.
She's super awesome. And so basically anything you would want to know medically, clinically about a period, she'll give us the rundown. So here we go. This is our chat with Dr. Sash. Let's do
Number
it.
one.
Fist bump.
Woo! Oh, Corona bump.
Oh, elbows. Okay, let's do it.
Hey, it's Danica here. Just before we start the podcast, You by Kotex believes a period should never hold you back, which is why, as well as keeping you covered and stress-free during your period, they're pumped to support us in smashing stigma and starting positive conversations to support people with periods. They also love the Period Place podcast and want you to know that you can catch replays along with more info on them and their products at You by Kotex, AUNZ, on Facebook, Instagram, or on their website. Thanks for the support, team. All right, back to the podcast.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone today.
Hey guys, how's it going?
So do you want to give us a little just background on who you are and what you get up to on a day-to-day basis, I suppose?
Yeah, sure. My name's Sasha. I'm a doctor. You might have seen me on Dr. Sash on socials, maybe not, but I do stuff, on the interwebs, which is kind of cool. And I am a doctor who works mainly across urgent care, so ED and GP. And I also run a technology startup as well, which is about improving access to care and just making it easier to get what you need, get good care.
You're everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's-
Do you want to give us a little rundown on Well Revolution, this app that you're working with?
Yeah. So Well Revolution is a company that 4 of us started about sort of 3 or 4 years ago. And we really wanted to change the game in healthcare and provide, really fast and efficient ways to deliver care. So if you go to wellrevolution.co.nz, you can see the app and how it works. But basically, it's just like no appointments, no waiting, just direct message a doctor or your GP if they're using the system. And pretty much it works just like WhatsApp or Messenger. The whole concept of for Gen Z and millennials, not having an appointment and getting it on demand and being able to do it in a way that's like of today, it's an app that works just like every other app. And then you can get your scripts and your sick notes and you can get it all from your bed. You don't have to leave. So that's kind of what it was all about. It's making it super simple and easy. And we thought, you guys are always on your phone, so why don't we put doctors there too?
100%, yeah.
That's I love that. You guys are always on your phone, so let's put the doctors there rather than trying to bring everybody to the doctors because there's so many issues around access, transport. Can they physically get there? Is the ailment worth a drive to the doctor? Or is it just something that can
100%.
be, answered? Is it a question that can be answered? Take a photo of this rash, send it in.
Yeah.
Do I need to come and see you or should I just stop using Google?
Yeah, no, literally, I've had all those questions just today on the app. So it's
So what was the rash?
we could get into it. It was herpes. No, just
Hey, Sasha, so to get straight into it from a doctor's perspective and for anyone who is maybe coming up to maybe about to have their period for the first time or maybe they are currently having their period but they just don't know a lot about it, what would you say is the basic things that any person who has a period needs to know about their body before sort of embarking on this journey?
Straight into it. I like it.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, that's a great way to start. So people who get periods, they have a uterus, right? So they need to have a uterus and they need to have ovaries in order to have a functioning kind of menstrual cycle. That might be people who identify as with, as a cis, female, or that also might be trans, right? So this is anyone who's got a uterus and ovaries. And what happens is that when you go through puberty, you get a change in your kind of hormonal dynamics, right? which cause the uterus to say, all right, it's time to make a baby. Right? And that's just the hormones. And the hormones say, okay, we're going to release an egg that's called ovulation. And what happens is the brain sends a signal to your ovaries, and then your ovary makes, you're actually, crazy little fact, every woman anyone who's born with ovaries already has all the eggs that they'll all have for the rest of their lives, right? And what will happen is that these little chemicals from the brain signal the ovary to say, okay, it's time to release one. And then it creates a little, like a little kind of like what we would call a cyst, or a little tiny little kind of sac. And then what happens is over the months that sac gets kind of bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it pops.
Oh, wow.
And that little pop releases a little tiny little egg that then travels from the ovary down the fallopian tube, which is a tube that takes it inside the uterus, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is if that little egg doesn't get fertilized, aka you're not having unprotected sex with someone who's producing sperm, and it doesn't make a little kind of embryo, then the uterus says, no, there's no little embryo here to implant into the lining of the uterus. And so the uterus goes, and then it cries, which is what I heard from a terrible lecturer once. But anyway, it was very misogynistic, and I'll just move on.
It's just a joke, as if you'd say
I know,
that in a lecture.
Yeah, it was terrible. A male gynecologist. I was like, you can't, but you've got so many people in front of you who actually live this. But anyway, so if there's no fertilized embryo at that particular time, the uterus then sheds the lining of the endometrium, which all that means, that's fancy words for a layer of the uterus inside the uterus starts to come away from the sides of the uterus. And with that comes blood, right?
Yeah.
And then you get your period, and usually you get your period. So this cycle of bleeding for sort of 1 to 5 to 7 days, something like that, then having your ovulation, which usually occurs around the middle of the cycle, so usually around day 14, and then repeating that again, so you bleed again on day 28, and then it kind of goes round and around and around. And that's all regulated by the rising and falling of different hormones from that originally start in your brain and then trigger your ovaries, which then trigger all those events to occur every month.
That's like the best rundown I've ever heard. Like, I'm 24 years old, and that was the best. And I was like, I didn't know that we were born with all of our eggs already.
And do you know that when you're inside your mother's womb as the egg, when you're when you're the baby inside your mother's womb, you've got all the eggs inside you then. It's not like you're born with them and they magically appear. It's like they're in you, and they're in you when you're the egg in that ovary, and in that ovary, and in that ovary.
So is there ever like a quantifiable like amount? Like, is there ever like...
No. I think from memory, this is going back quite a few years, but I think you have around 300,000.
But not everyone's going to come out.
No.
300,000 periods.
No, you definitely not have 300. So sometimes the actual, those eggs or cells, that's what they are. They are a single cell. That's what an egg, is. It's just one single cell. Sometimes they degrade over time, and they go through a, kind of like a mini death, like one little cell doesn't continue on with, right? So what's trippy to think is that me and you, all of us, were actually inside our grandmother's womb. Because if you think about it, right, we were an egg inside of our mother while she was inside of her mother.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that so like
I'm
linky?
so mind blown. Oh my gosh, that's actually crazy. I've never even knew that, but that's so, and I just can't believe that I'm sitting here in my mid-20s and never ever hearing that about and not like never knowing that I always had my eggs. I just assumed it was something that was just like produced every month,
like sperm,
hoping
sperm,
hoping that the sperm would come and fertilize.
Nah, man, it's like that whole maternal line, like that whole kind of. There's this really rad book, which actually has nothing to do with periods as such, but it's called The 7 Daughters of Eve, and it's all about tracking, like the migration of humans through time based on their mitochondrial DNA, and that's just a fancy way of saying particular type of DNA that only gets passed from mother to daughter.
Wow.
And so they were able to track, like humans over time, based on this particular type of DNA. Anyway, that's just a little
so
nerdy
beautiful. I'm
aside.
getting all the feels here.
That's really special.
What I took away from your really simple, easy, digestible way of understanding what a period is that Tegan's not having unprotected sex because she's got her period right now.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Well, you could still be having unprotected sex, but you're kind of playing like a Russian roulette if you don't want to have a baby.
So what you're saying is it's a myth that every time you have sex you can't get pregnant. I mean, you can get pregnant. Wait, how does that work?
Well, listen, no. So, I mean, the main thing I want young women to hear is that, if you don't want to have a baby, then you definitely need to sort something out. You need to have some form of contraception, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about it, with that description I just told you, right?
Yeah.
When you have your period, you're basically kind of flushing the contents of your uterus away, right? They're kind of disappearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very little chance of you getting pregnant at that particular time. But around the middle section, so somewhere between days 10 to days 20 odd, you could be quite fertile because most people ovulate. This is just an average, but most people ovulate on day 14,
right?
Give or take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the egg is only actually alive for 24 hours. You've got a very short window for the egg to be inseminated. However, sperm is a tricky little beast, and it lives for 7 days. So you could have had
Our producer in the podcast is male, and at the mention of sperm being tricky little beasts, just put his arms up in a really masculine way, going from the studio.
Well, it's true. So what happens is you could have had sex, like it could have been a Saturday night, and you were out and you met someone, and you're like, "This is super cool," and you had consensual sex, super important, and super important, and you had it. You might have forgotten to like cover it up and use a condom or get protection. And that sperm could be alive for another 7 days. And so you're thinking, sweet, I'm not ovulating. But actually, in 5 days' time, she's just, your little egg, she's just cruising along and just enjoying herself in the fallopian tube.
She's just having a little swim. She's like on a donut pillow, just flowing down the tube, having a great time.
Yeah.
I'm not even having sex at the moment. It's just scared me. It's just scared me all over again.
Yeah, like I'm down. Have sex with whoever you want to have sex with. Like I'm down for people being really positive about their sexuality and expression, and that's awesome. And if it's consensual and you're into it, awesome. But if you don't want to have a baby, then you really have to think about what you're going to do. Both you and the person with the sperm should be thinking about what you're both doing to prevent a pregnancy. So those are key messages for kids, for young people to think about,
It's a really important point to hammer home how long the sperm can last for, because people think if I had sex on this day at this time and I'm, I'm not ovulating for a few days or a week, I'm going to be safe. But no, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, unless you're tracking your ovulation, with a blood test that actually tells us exactly the 24-hour period that you're going to ovulate, you are somewhat guessing. It's good to know how it all works, but it's also really good just to be prepared.
Yeah.
100%. Also, just like sort of following on, because I suppose that is a myth, like knowing that you only ovulate for 24 hours. Well, I mean, you do, but as in knowing that you can only get pregnant in that 24 hours. Are there any sort of common myths as a doctor you come across like really often that are to do with periods?
Yeah.
Like what?
Well, I mean,
let's debunk some.
Let's do it.
Well, I mean, like, there's just a lot of misconceptions. So, like, the fact that I've just described to you how the cycle works, often people just don't understand the basics of the cycle. People who menstruate typically have a 28-day cycle, but there are also lots and lots of women, lots and lots of people who menstruate who have different length cycles. Some might be really long, some might not even be regular, some might be totally irregular. And they don't quite know what's going on. And if you're irregular or you have longer cycles, it makes it even more difficult to anticipate when your ovulation day will be. So then you're even more kind of flying in the dark.
What's a short example of an ovulation window? Because, I've got polycystic ovaries and potentially endo. We're still figuring that out. But, you know, my long cycle, my cycle's averaged between 35 and 60 days for years, but it's about 45 days is the midpoint. And that gets attributed to polycystic ovaries. But is there anyone out there who's having a period less than 28 days? I've actually never thought about that before.
Yeah. There are people who have had less than 28 days.
Oh, poor
Like,
bastards.
Yeah, it's always hard to speak, you know, in black and white. But in general, most people who menstruate have a somewhat regular cycle, but there are enough people who don't, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's definitely quite variable.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the myths aren't so much about the period themselves. It's just more that there's a lot of mystery and mystique when it comes to getting pregnant or not getting pregnant, or how to use contraception or not, you know, how to not use contraception, or where you can get contraception from, sexual health myths, you know, like, no, if I do this and this and that, I definitely won't get an STD or an STI.
If
or
I have sex upside down in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm sweet.
I'm sweet.
This is kind of a little bit of a personal question. I've been on the pill for a couple of years. I actually just like over lockdown, I just ran out and just thought, like I'm not actually sexually active at the moment, so just didn't bother to top it up.
I'm so sorry.
I know, it's okay. So this is my first like normal like non-pill period in a while. And I just figure like since I'm not having sex, I don't really need to be on any contraception. Is that actually a good thing, like to maybe have a break from contraception every now and then if I can, like for your body?
Or is that a myth?
Or is that a myth? Because I always heard it's kind of healthy to have a break if you can, but I don't know if that's legit or not, or where I even heard that.
I think the science is pretty sound in saying that if you're on the pill for like a decade or two, it doesn't hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
so
cool.
that's just your personal preference.
Oh, well, there you go.
More than
That's
anything.
good to know, though,
So
that you're not doing something wrong.
Yeah, I know, because I was kind of like,
no, you're not.
I feel like I sometimes like I'm doing something wrong by putting something like ever so slightly unnatural in my body when I don't need to. But okay, that's good to know. That I'm going to go get the pill next week again, even though I don't need it. I'm like,
Yeah, but it's like,
yeah.
the question is, why do you think that it's bad? I think that's the patriarchy speaking to you.
Yes,
Oh.
Queen. Yes, Queen. I heard
like
this
it.
really
Yeah.
amazing.
Challenging me there.
Here's another little fact. So, like, you know how you've got the pill,
Yeah.
right? You've got the oral combined pill. Now, the oral combined pill is often referred to, you know, by most women as the pill. And all that the oral combined pill has, most of the time, is estrogen and progesterone in different levels, like different recipes. And so, you know, one brand versus the other might have 30 milligrams of estrogen, and one might have 50, you know, so they're just different recipes of estrogen.
Yep.
So all you're doing when you're trying different pills is kind of going, does this particular recipe work really well for me? And they're just taking a synthesized version of the chemical that we make inside of our own bodies, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So you're exactly right. You know, what you've just said is kind of true.
I feel like that kind of plays into like the childbirth thing. I've had 2 kids and I wanted to have a really natural birth with both of them. And the first one I ended up being in labour for 4 days. And on the third day, my midwife was like, I'm so sorry, honey, I'm going to have to give you an epidural because you'll have no energy to push him out if he ever makes it, if he ever comes out, or you'll just be in labour for the rest of your life. But it took me going through that experience to be okay with it, not feeling like I was cheating with an epidural or being a bad natural woman or something like that. So I think that stigma of taking the pill is put into our minds and it carries through into that birthing journey and parenting journey. It's the beginning of
Totally.
100%. 100%. We're like shamed all the time, right? We're shamed about all these events. And I think in particular, women have been, you know, like overrepresented in the shame scales, right? We're just constantly like, oh, our bodies aren't good enough right from the beginning. Like, oh, they're too big. Oh, they're too small. Oh, my boobs are too big. Oh, my boobs are too small. Oh, God, I've got my period. Oh, God, shame, shame, shame. And it just kind of continues on throughout the whole kind of life cycle. And I think maybe it's our kind of generation's thing to change this kind of understanding around like the shame culture. And maybe that's kind of what we're here to do, is like to eradicate that by just speaking openly and plainly, whether it's periods, getting pregnant, miscarriage, abortion, you know, the whole shebang. I think that's really why this discourse is so important.
if there was someone, and they don't necessarily have to be young, but even someone who's older who's having issues with their period or having issues getting pregnant or something like that, but, you know, maybe someone like a family GP isn't their most comfortable option. Are there any kind of, like, if they're a little bit like whakama, like embarrassed about going to somewhere like that, are there any kind of resources that are like easy to access, like with sort of medical advice that you could kind of recommend for someone like that?
Yeah. I totally recommend family planning, and just shout out to Margaret Sparrow and also to my grandma who was helpful back in the day setting it up. I would say family planning is a good place to go. It's really awesome for young people to go there because it's often free. The doctors and the nursing staff that work there are often really rad. They're easy to talk to. They do this day in, day out. So there's no shame culture around any of their interactions. The other thing I'd recommend is that, sometimes finding a GP that you just really gel with is super important, just so that you get the care that you need over your life. So spending a bit of time figuring out what that means for you is definitely worthwhile. So I think it's important, especially for young people, like when you're like 16 or 14 or, 21, you're just like, basically, most of the time, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? How do I navigate life? This is really weird and hard. And, who knows? Like, people come from such different backgrounds. They might be in foster care. They might have come up in an abusive relationship. Who knows, right? What I really want people to hear is that you deserve to be understood. So just spend the time and the energy to seek out relationships that you feel seen and heard. And whether that means you need to find a doctor that looks the same as you or looks different is really up to you. But just having that ability to go, oh, actually, it's okay. Like, I don't just have to see that doctor right down the road because that's what everyone else does. It's like, well, you can actually choose.
I fucking love that. Yeah, you 100% can. And just to go back to the real basic stuff, how do you prepare for your first period? If I was having my first period, how do I prepare for it?
Tough.
Oh, I just remember my experience being like, man, that was awkward.
Tell us about it if you want.
Oh, sure. I was a late bloomer. So at school, I did go to a bit of a fancy school, so they had a house class where they took us through some really good explanations of periods, and then they gave us a box of tampons and a box of pads, and they gave us some stuff. So that was actually really cool because then I just hid that away. Under my bed or something. And so then all my friends, because I was really tall in primary school, and then all my friends grew up and got periods, and I was this really short little person. And I was like, what? I was like, what's going on? And it wasn't until I was I think I was 15.
Oh, wow.
Really late. And I was like, oh my God, I definitely know that I should be getting this thing, but I haven't got it yet. This is awkward. And so then when I did get it, I sort of obviously knew what was going on, but I still was like, what? I don't even know what to do with these actual products. This is confusing.
Yeah.
So I think I talked to my mum, which she's a doctor. So it was a bit awkward, but we got through it in the end.
So what would in that sense, so how would you have advice for parents with their kids about having their first period, maybe how to approach it?
Well, I think if you feel weird about it, you should direct them towards resources that teach them stuff like this podcast or books and stuff. But it really, I think, having decent chats with kids, especially young teenagers and stuff, is worthwhile. It's awkward and stuff, but so what? Parenting, the whole parenting experience is awkward. And then give them some resources, okay, so here's some stuff.
Yep.
Actually for me, having some stuff on hand that I could tuck away and have when I needed it was actually really useful for a kid like me.
Yeah.
Because I was sweet, I've got it.
As far as maybe products and stuff from a medical perspective, is there anything that you would sort of recommend more? We've got tampons, menstrual cups, we've got period underwear and stuff like that now. Is there anything you would recommend more than the other, or is you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really think there's any medical recommendations. People just need to use what they find comfortable. But, in general, no, it's just user choice. which I think it should be. It shouldn't be up to me to tell you what you should do
Yeah.
Awesome.
with your body, but they should be empowered with the knowledge to understand what choices they do have.
Amazing. I love that. That's good words. That's good words. Hey, thank you so much. We're just going to wrap it up here. You have covered like literally everything and more. Thank you so much. Is there anywhere, if anyone listening, was able to reach out to you, how can we reach out to you, Sasha?
Probably the easiest way is just hit me up on social media at Dr. Sash on Instagram and Facebook. Doctor it's just the word doctor, Doctor, and Sash, SASH.
Awesome.
And often I run a few times a week, I'll run a Q&A on Instagram and heaps of questions, often about this kind of stuff, but a range of stuff. So, happy to answer questions for people and point them in the right direction and all that jazz.
Epic.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For your time and for your knowledge and for your wisdom and for your stories and everything. It's been beautiful, and I hope that for everybody who's out there listening, they can hear that we're all talking about something that's normal, and it's easy to do once you just start talking. It becomes easier the more you talk about it, so you just got to open up those floodgates.
Start the convo.
Yeah, and 100%. And I also want to say thanks to you guys, because I think what you're doing right here is super awesome, and I think you probably don't realise how much impact and how long the impact will, how much time will be impacting people for. So just wanted to say thank you and appreciate being on the show, but just,
Awesome.
I think what you're doing is awesome.
Oh, all the feels. Kia ora.
Yay.
See you guys.
Bye.
Damn, I tell you what. I'm only 24, but I said it once and I'll say it again. There was so much that
So much.
Sasha told us that I had no idea about our body. I really can't get past the whole thing that you were literally born with all the eggs you're ever going to produce in your life. Mm-hmm. Roughly, a rough estimate number-wise of 300,000, she said.
Yep.
That's just, imagine having 300,000 babies.
So if anybody wants to get in touch with Dr. Sasha, just to reiterate, they need to go to wellrevolution.com.
So next week on the podcast, we will be talking to some very special guests about periods and gender. Something I really don't know about because I'm very heteronormative. Is that the right term to use? I'm very straight up and down.
In every sense of the word.
Yes. I'm very straight up and down. But they are your friends. Give them a little intro.
They are. So H. McCardle is a very old friend of mine, and I am super pumped to have them on the podcast. And then Lee Brown, who is a trans man who used to have a period and doesn't anymore, and is like, I'm done with that, but I still have some feels about what I went through back in the day, and I'm going to share it.
Because guess what, Whānau? It's not girls that have periods.
It's
people that have periods. So we're going to break down those society norms.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Chubber.
The Period Place Podcast.
Thanks to our mates at Ubicotex.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at The Period Place. Hosted by Danica Revel and Tegan Yarworth. Special aroha to Sarah Mickelson. Produced by Carl Thompson and project managed by Heidi Thompson, both from Blue and Ginge Creative.